right.
Welcome, Teen Angst, and wait, didn't I do that opening already? This is episode 438 of an Unearthly Podcast, streaming live on the 8th of February 2022, and featuring The Nightmare Man, written by Joseph Lidster, and starring Elizabeth Sladen as Sarah Jane Smith, Tommy Knight as Luke Smith, Daniel Anthony as Clyde Langer, Anjali Mohindra as Ronnie Chandra, Alexander Armstrong as Mr. Smith, and John Leeson as K9. I am Bill Sylvia, the one in black, and I'm pretty sure I'll never have to do an opening cast that long ever again. With me are Randy Ronson McCulloch.
Tonight's super short episode is brought to you by Painkillers.
And
Yay!
Alex Fireheart.
You definitely won't have to do one this long starting next week.
Mad Matt Winchell is not with us tonight due to some technical issues, and will be giving his thoughts on the episode next week.
Oh. So, yeah, my week has been Pokemon Arceus.
I also gave in and decided that the first game on my Switch should be that as well. Which I don't know why I chose this week to buy a Switch when I'm already struggling to keep up with schoolwork, but such is life.
Because you need to blow off stress. And what
Exactly.
way to blow off stress? By trying to catch a dozen Pokemon who keep running away from you at the first second. Come here, you fucking Eevee! Come here! Ball! Yeah. How about you, Alex?
Mainly just my week's just been getting back into watching wrestling, though nothing from this year really recently. It's like in the past week I've just been watching a lot of stuff from Japan.
I was going to say, a lot of modern wrestling's not worth watching.
Like essentially was like I watched the Royal Rumble pay-per-view from WWE this year and had to wash the bad taste of that out of my mouth by watching like some older stuff that like funnily enough, like I watched the 2 previous years sets of Royal Rumbles and they were better than this year. And then like on top of that, I watched a bunch of stuff from Japan and I was like, yes, this is better, thank you.
Every couple of years I wind up in the hospital, right? And during that time, what I have is broadcast television on the screen, so I wind up watching Raw or SmackDown. And I come out of that 2 hours later going, why did I just watch that for 2 hours? What was the point?
Which is why I think your most recent time is the one you just went on Disney Plus and binged everything.
Yeah. Well, that, I had my laptop in front of me. I'm like, okay, fuck that. Yeah.
For my own week, I think the most interesting thing that's happened other than the Switch arriving is I'm trying to figure out if my coffee pot is busted or I've just been having bad luck with my bean grinder. I think there was a short power outage that reset my coffee grinder to default settings. So last night I made a pot of coffee and it was all like the beans were not ground well enough and it ended up like getting grounds all over the place and overflowing coffee and shit. So I cleaned that up, and then today I think I overcorrected because the same thing happened, except when I cleaned it up this time the grounds left in the filter and in the pot looked like mud. So I'm like, I think I overground it this time.
You'll find it eventually.
Yep. Unless something actually is busted.
Anyway, so moving on to tonight's show.
Yep.
Usually I let us talk for a while, but I'm going for speed tonight. We've got birthdays. We've got no news but Pig Finish. And then all we've got is our episode summary, our review, our final thoughts, and our ratings. So let's get this train wreck over with. Today's birthday is February 3rd, birthday of Warwick Davis, who played Forage in Nightmare in Silver, but is best known for his work in Star Wars. He turned 52.
And Willow and the Leprechaun.
better known for Star Wars.
Yes.
And then on the February 4th is Peter Butterworth, who played the meddling monk way back in 1965 and 66. Would have been 103, but died in 79 at 59, so there are no recent photos. I did not see any deaths this week. So moving down to Big Finish, their new releases are Bernie Summerfield, The Slender-Fingered Cats of Bubastis, which is apparently a conversion of a novel, written by Xana Eve Chown and narrated by Lisa Bowerman. The Lone Centurion series gets a Volume 2, Camelot, with Arthur Darvill. Third Doctor Adventures, The Annihilators, with Michael Troughton and Fraser Hines, playing the second Doctor and Jamie, respectively. So, that is what Big Finish has going.
I'm guessing Fraser Hines appreciates his vocal cords having a bit of a break and not having to do the double roll.
Mm-hmm. Either that or he's just like, yeah, I'll work with Michael Troughton. Oh, yeah, I'll work with the wee kitty. Yeah.
Wee kitty.
Considering who Fraser
Not
Hines
anymore.
I know, but considering who Fraser Hines is,
Right.
I mean, how old is he now?
Oh.
He was born in 44, so he would be 77.
Yeah. How old is Michael Troughton?
Yep.
11 years younger.
Oh, I'll work with the wee kitty. I'll work with the wee lad. Why not? You ever wonder if Fraser Hines will grow senile and just think he's Jamie? Anyway, moving on to the summary. Like I said, I'm aiming for speed tonight. Would somebody like to get a stopwatch cup?
1 second. All right. Ready for countdown?
Mm-hmm.
3, 2, 1, go.
All right, so we start out with Luke talking into a camcorder about these nightmares he's having and how they're going to end the world and it's all his fault and that the Nightmare Man is coming. We flash back to a year prior where he and Sarah Jane are in the middle of a caper and he discusses the fact that while they're chained up with a bomb, his teachers want him to take his A-levels early so he could go to college early. Well, after they stop the bomb, destroy the Sylvine behind the bomb, she's just like, yeah, that's a great idea, let's do this. So he goes, takes his A-levels early, and passes. And we fast forward again to a few days before he's to leave for college. School just got underway, and he's starting to feel anxiety. He's starting to feel, left behind in ways, and that everybody's kind of abandoning him, and that starts showing up in his dreams, which he's not supposed to have. And first, Sarah abandons him, then his friends abandon him, and every time he's plagued by the same creepy voice going, I'm coming. And finally, we see this guy, who I'm going to refer to as Low Rent Joker, who comes out, mocks him, and says all he needs is one more dream and I'll be able to be real. And so we see him just before that night making the recording. And of course, after that, he goes over and immediately falls asleep. And Low Rent Joker pops out. It's like, I'm here. I'm real. And proceeds to try to curse everybody to sleep. And manages to curse Clyde and Ronnie. But does not get Sarah Jane. Sarah Jane winds up sending K9 into Luke's dream to help Luke realize it is a dream and snap out. Luke manages to contact Clyde and Ronnie with K9's help, and they manage to visualize doors so they can meet up in the dream world. This causes the Nightmare Man no end of problems, and eventually he's forced to go in and confront them. Well, they team up and, with the power of friendship, trap the Nightmare Man in his own dream and manage to escape, leaving him to suffer, I don't know, endless indignity. They escape, and then Sarah gifts Luke K9 to take with him to school, and they drive off. It's amazing how often they manage to find a way to get K9 out of this show. The end.
3 minutes and 4 seconds.
Okay. So, what did we like about this episode? And Matt would be first. Did we have his thoughts? No.
No.
Okay, so we're going to cross him off, and Alex is next.
Honestly, this is another case like last time where, as hammy as the acting is and whatever, I fucking love the Nightmare Man in this. I mean, I guess it's because he's actually, I mean, like, you take into account this is supposed to be a show for kids.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the hammy acting is like, yeah, he's hamming it up, but he is also still being creepy. So it's like, yeah, I mean, like, you know, I could see some kids being totally unaffected by this, but I could also see some kids being at least creeped out, if not freaked out by it.
Just wondering how many kids would be like, "Oh, is that Luke Skywalker? No, he's just a knockoff."
Well, how many people watch it are just like, mimes! I hate mimes! All right, Bill, how about you?
So I really liked the character moments, and I can't even really narrow it down any more than that because I think all of the characters had solid moments of characterization. That episode was just really strong across all of the main cast members. Sarah Jane had good moments, Ronnie had good moments, Clyde, and of course Luke did. Even K9 and Mr. Smith had their little frenemy moments.
Mm-hmm.
Which is saying a lot given how many characters they're focusing on, and they're not just completely ignoring Ronnie and Clyde for to emphasize Luke more. I mean, he is the main focus, but still, they don't neglect the other two.
If anything, I would have thought they would have neglected Sarah Jane to focus on that power of friendship bit, but they didn't do that either, for sure.
All right. As for me, I like how Luke's departure was the focus of the episode and not tacked on in the last 5 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah. This does seem to be like between this and Maria's exit, it just seems to be like a running thing that like them leaving plays into the plot.
Mm-hmm.
I do kind of wish
Sarah Jane.
I just wish Doctor Who had been able to do that in the classic era.
I do kind of wish that the first scene had either been in a separate episode, either at the beginning of a season with Luke leaving at the end, or like the end of the previous episode with this episode focusing on Luke leaving. Like the A-levels thing and the leaving for college happening in the same episode is a bit jarring.
I guess maybe it's one of those things of, did they actually know he was going to be leaving necessarily?
Yeah, I don't know if they knew he was leaving at the end of the last season.
Right.
And as far as I'm aware, he was leaving. The actor was leaving to go to college, so.
It was either that or just like felt like he'd done all he could do on the show.
I remember
'cause
at one point Alex was looking over his IMDb, and it kind of came off more like he was leaving for more lucrative acting opportunities.
Yeah, because he ended up on a show like right after this and was on it for like 3 years, and is now on the show. Is it like Victoria with Jenna
Yeah.
Coleman? So, um,
There's a lot of Doctor Who alum that wound up in Victoria.
Yep. There's only a couple dozen actors in Britain, and they just get recycled.
I'm surprised we didn't see any of the Sarah Jane Adventures cast on Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, so what didn't we not like about the episode?
Oh,
Alex is first.
mm, uh, honestly, outside of what Bill sort of already touched on, I don't think I really have anything. At least nothing major enough to come to mind because, like,
Well,
yeah, it
the
does.
only
It
negative
does
things
feel
I've said
like,
would have been caveats to positive things, so you can definitely
yeah,
take it as your negative thing.
yeah, because like it is a bit funny how they kind of have to tack that on at the front, but I also do kind of let that slide a little because I assume when this was like when the previous series would have been filmed, they probably didn't necessarily
Mhm.
know that he was on the way out. So,
Well, that's a decision he made over the break.
Mhm.
I mean, there is kind of like sort of like it's kind of funny because like you could argue that like knowing that this was his last story and then rewatching Mona Lisa's Revenge was sort of like, oh, it's like a bit of foreshadowing, maybe, but not really.
Not really.
Um, and I haven't seen The Gift in forever, so I don't know if that had any foreshadowing either.
I started watching that thinking it was tonight's, and then I went, well, nope, 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 we've seen this. I only got about 3 minutes in. Anyway,
Does the opening scene make this count as a Silurian episode? Because if so,
not
then
really,
they may
because
merit a playlist. But
not us. No, it's not a Slovene episode because they're not the focus of the episode. They have a scene.
right.
And yeah,
On to
doing that
me.
would make like A Good Man Goes to War, a Cyberman
Oh
episode.
God, yeah. Fair. On to me.
Yeah.
So I felt that the Nightmare Man seems inconsistent and has a lazy name. Inconsistent in the sense I couldn't quite figure out what his powers were, because at one moment he seemed to create dreams, on another moment he seemed to like just get power from dreams, and then he lives in every dream. So I'm like, if he lives in every dream, then why does he need Luke to dream? So it's this. I mean, not dream, nightmare, not every dream, but it seemed inconsistent. And otherwise, just his name seems lazy. Like I don't, if he, he's an extra dimensional being who has the power to go into nightmares. You'd think there'd be other beings like him, and he would therefore want a more original name. He seems like a character that would fit really well in like a Neil Gaiman universe, but doesn't seem to fit as well in like a Doctor Who universe to me.
I also feel that he was really lazily done by the costuming and special effects people.
What do you mean? All they did? What you mean? The Joker isn't an original enough costume?
No. And it's not even a decent Joker. He's got white face paint on his face, but not his neck. A black suit with a red squirty flower.
Mm-hmm.
And did he even have like white gloves?
No,
I
he
mean,
had like hobo fingerless gloves.
okay, because he just did not look alien enough.
Mm.
They could have
Mm.
used it. I mean, if he's supposed to be, this nightmare creation, they could have distorted his features slightly.
Mm.
Elongated
Especially
his
in
chin.
dreams, yeah.
Yeah, elongated his chin using prosthetics. And it wouldn't have even been expensive prosthetics.
Yeah.
Just make it
I guess
look like so he's just out of the range of human. Making him look almost slightly demonic. Because that's what happens in dreams. You distort reality.
That would have been leaning a little bit more into the Pennywise and Freddy Krueger inspirations, and not. I'm still not entirely sure why the Joker. I mean, maybe they weren't intentionally thinking the Joker, but it definitely comes off as though like they started with the Joker and then moved on from there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they'd already done Pennywise with Day of the Clown, so
yeah. Not sure why they needed to do the clown makeup again.
And the balloon again.
Yeah, it seemed to be. I think some kind of distorted nightmare boogeyman would have been better than the going back to a clown face.
I think like something that occurred to me slightly was a matter of kind of the best that looks is when he's behind that door as it closes, so he's in a lot of darkness. And it almost made me think of like that one shot where you see Pazuzu's face in The Exorcist.
I don't
And it
remember.
was
It's been a
like,
long time since I've seen The Exorcist. I have to be in the right mood to watch movies like that, and I'm rarely in that mood.
Yeah. I just like the sort of painted face thing where it's like if they'd go on with a different like look at that, or even just I guess just like having him shrouded in darkness a lot probably would have also helped in that regard.
All right. Yeah, I just felt like if they did more of an impish look, you know, think of how Marvel Comics Hobgoblin is supposed to look with the mask on, not the movies like the cartoons and stuff.
Yeah.
The long chin, the pointed ears.
Okay.
And if they had done that to this, and then maybe used white face paint, but not just on his face, so it covered his neck too, like it just looked like he had pale skin, that would have been more creepy.
Is it wrong that when you said impish, my first thought was replacing him with like Mixes Pitalik? Which I could kind of buy for a nightmare entity.
But yeah, that's my main thing is that it seemed for me it was a bit of a costume fail.
I mean, kind of I guess an interesting thing would have also just being that like potentially that he appears differently depending on the person looking at him.
Except they didn't do that either.
Yeah.
When he's confronting Sarah Jane, he looks exactly the same as when he's confronting Luke.
Because like if it was a matter of his appearance just sort of or I guess even just they had like a hand wavy line to be like I'm an interdimensional being beyond your comprehension. I'm just taking on this form so you can actually like comprehend my existence kind of a thing.
Well, yeah, there's several things they could have done. Like, why do you look like that? What am I supposed to look like? Marilyn Monroe? I mean, it's obvious they started with the Joker and it went downhill from there. I'm just that's all I'm saying. All right, favorite scenes.
Let's see. I've got it's funny because I've got a few. So I'm trying to narrow it down to one.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly,
so yours was the same as
there are a
mine,
lot
Ran?
of-
You didn't have a separate bad
My-
point?
yeah, only mine was more of the costuming instead of the
Oh,
characterization.
okay, got you. Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense.
I guess rather than the scenes that I'd go with that I had an emotional reaction to, I'm going to go with the one that made me laugh the most, and that is like, Sarah Jane, if you connect me up to K9, I can boost his
Damn it.
power. Oh yes, I have all this technology that I can, alien technology I can give to Mr. Smith. What do you need? I just need a USB cable.
God damn it!
That was funny.
That was my favorite line of the whole show. I've got this, I've got this, I've got this. I just need a USB lead. Blink, blink, blink.
Just like the flat delivery of that is just makes it.
Which is funny because I imagine like if there was more, like if that scene could go on longer without ruining the tension, I could just imagine the next moment being, we need an adapter to fit the USB into K9. So on to me then. I'm going to go with the scene where Ronnie kind of forces Clyde to confront his feelings after he's been avoiding Luke all week. And then she kind of forces him to like say what he's really feeling, and then which leads to him throwing the party, but the party's a separate scene.
Yeah. And like it's funny because it didn't, I didn't catch it until watching it today. But it's like, oh yeah, of course Clyde would be clamming up about this. He's got abandonment issues.
Yep.
That's right, yeah, and he even mentions that in another scene. He was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, and in an earlier scene, I think he was like, when my
Yeah.
dad left, he just disappeared. So
Are
we
you
need to
watching this,
act
Chipno?
like that.
Characterization. It's perfectly in character for Clyde to clam up about this because of his abandonment issues, which were discussed in previous episodes. Write down some notes, Chibnall. Learn from this. The plot is working with the characters' backgrounds, not the character working around to serve the plot. I think so. My favorite was the actual party scene, where Luke tries to get Clyde to go after Ronnie, and Clyde once again just nope. Why would I want to do that?
So yes, I felt like that was a very parallel to the scene I just mentioned. It's like, yes, face your feelings that everyone knows you have and you won't admit to twice.
Come on, man, you want her? Go get her. And Clyde is just such a... Yeah. Least favorite scene.
But I feel like I did have one. Like, you know what? I'll go with like the bit in the party where Luke is trying to explain that he's had yet another nightmare, and Ronnie, like, and this is like what, the third one he's had at this point, and Ronnie just kind of is like, oh, it's probably just stress. And I'm thinking like, okay, no, this has happened 3 times now. And like he's not supposed to be able to dream at all, so like this should be ringing alarm bells by now.
It was, and they were
Like,
too oblivious.
Yeah. Like, especially when we're trying to set up Ronnie as like essentially the next Sarah Jane. It seems a bit weird that in a previous scene Sarah Jane is like, wait, you've had nightmares? Fuck. and immediately breaks out Mr. Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And Ronnie, who already knew about this, is just like, to a point, I can get it as just like trying to get his mind off of it. But also, it's like, I feel like Ronnie should be taking this a bit more seriously.
Yeah, it does feel like that. But then again, there's absolutely nothing she can do about it either.
Right, yeah.
Although almost there, if you're to go off that, I could kind of see like her being like, oh, maybe we should tell Sarah Jane. But yeah, that's about the most that she could have done about it.
Right.
Other than, I mean, my first thought is, oh, you've been having nightmares. Maybe you should get on antidepressants. But that's not the actual issue at play here.
No.
Plus, I don't really think they'd go for that in a kid's show.
That's what the doctors would be saying.
Not unless it was a very special episode type of episode. And then,
nope, you're having nightmares. You're having attention deficit disorder. Here's your pills.
So I was just thinking about how I've been having fewer anxiety nightmares since I've been on antidepressants. Oh.
I'm just remembering when I was a kid how ADD was like, the diagnosis for everything if you were under 18.
Mm-hmm. I feel you. Now it's on to my least favorite scene.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say the scene with Sarah Jane and the Nightmare Man, because it goes from being this scene of, this is a threat, either focused on Luke or taking advantage of an opportunity, to no, this is yet another threat who's all about Sarah Jane, and I didn't think it needed that. Like that, I felt added an extra wrinkle to the episode that didn't help matters.
Oh, I think I didn't mind that much, because I feel he would have gone after anybody.
Yeah.
So that I could see, but the fact that he was like, oh, the famous Sarah Jane, all of these events, and started like listing off like events of like things, and I was just
and then he gets the headaches, like, why am I wasting time with you, old woman? In the same scene.
Yeah.
It was just he's just preying on her insecurities.
Yeah. I mean, funny thing is that was actually one of my backup favorite potentials, just because like she almost tricks him into putting her to sleep so she can meet up with everyone else, and then he figures it out. So it's like, okay, good, the villain is not is not being outsmarted this easily. That's nice.
Although she didn't lose to the point of being frozen in a painting either.
Yeah.
No.
So now it's Turan.
And yeah, my issue's the ending where they suck him into one of the dreams, because it really kind of felt ad hoc-y for the ending. It just kind of felt like anticlimactic.
I get the first part. What would have been more climactic to you, do you feel?
They had done something. They'd figured out how he was like connected to Luke, and managed to undo it somehow. Some kind of psychic connection they reversed. I mean, it's Sarah Jane Adventures, but it's still Doctor Who.
Right. So like
reverse the polarity, send the being back to where it came from.
So like trapping him in his own dimension and preventing him from ever coming into people's nightmares again, sort of thing?
Yes. It would have been great if, while they're working on that, Sarah gets the K9 and Mr. Smith working again. They discover where the psychic origin is, reverse the signal, and, full team effort.
I could see that. Especially since, you had Mr. Smith and K9 all involved in this.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember if the ending they used was cribbed from, like, a Freddy Krueger movie or not. And if so, I don't remember it. it seems like it might have been a little out there that it might not have been. It might have been original, but
I mean, at the barest minimum, the way Freddy is defeated in the first movie is Nancy taking back all the power she gave
that part,
him.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean specifically the like being trapped in a dream. I do think there might have been moments where like they had him killed by his own creation, killed being by his own creation sort of thing. So it was similar but different at the same time.
Yeah.
I thought for a second they were going the whole like Nightmare on Elm Street 1, like I'm not afraid of you route, but instead they did more of the it like power of friendship thing.
Yeah.
Well, at least they did that without having a 13-year-old orgy. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
What were you smoking, Stephen King, when you were like, no, you were sniffing. That's right.
Right.
There may have been at least 3 substances in his system. I can guarantee 2 of them. Well, yeah. I can guarantee the coke and the alcohol. There's a good chance there was more as well.
Coke, alcohol, caffeine,
Right.
and a few other substances churning in there. But whatever, he goes back and it's like, I have no memory of writing this. Woo! Okay.
So final thoughts.
Yes, and Alex is first.
Honestly, a few shortcomings here and there, maybe that there are, and like honestly, with the look of the Nightmare Man, I take that down to budget. Maybe they wanted to go a bit nuts, but they'd already spent the money elsewhere. Depending on how this was sorted out. I really enjoy this. I haven't watched Day of the Clown in a while, so I don't know if it's a matter of I feel that this is better than that or not. But the one funny thing that occurred to me while sort of watching this is that this is sort of like Can You Hear Me from Chibnall's Run. And honestly, I mean, for one thing, I prefer the way that he gets into people's heads rather than the fingers coming off and stuff. It's just like a better visual in this. On a lower budget. But yeah, arguably you could say this is better than Can You Hear Me Anyway, because there's a lot more focus on anxieties the characters have and all that. And even though it's mainly supposed to be Luke focused, that they go into a lot of other stuff. And like everyone has a part to play in this. But yeah, this is, without having rewatched a lot of other Sarah Jane adventures in a while, I would say this is probably one of my favorite stories of the stuff I've seen.
Okay. On the issue of Can You Hear Me, that brings to the point there. This was a lot better than Can You Hear Me in the sense that the anxieties that were addressed really built off the characters as we knew them and things they had expressed in the past. Which is funny considering the other flaw that we've mentioned of this arguably being too episodic in the sense of the whole Luke is leaving at the at the start of the new school year thing, kind of just being stuck in the same episode. That said, in the sense the any difficulty I had in finding good things was more narrowing down which was better than something else. Any difficulty I had in finding bad things was more finding something bad enough to have something to say about it. So all in all, this is, I would say, definitely more positive than negative. To the point where some complaints could be argued to be nitpicks. And even like even issues with the Nightmare Man and whatever, it kept it from being a perfect episode, but I don't think it hugely detracted from the episode because the episode was really focused on those character moments that I think they did really well. And that's about it for me.
Okay. So this I thought was well written. It was definitely well characterized for the characters as they were at this point. Um, I think the only fail was when it came down to direction and costuming, how they visualized the villain. Um, the villain acted fine, but really I didn't. I didn't buy the visuals, which is part of the letdown of a TV show. Um, Everything else was fine. I found the ending slightly hokey, but tolerable. Um, yeah, I thought this was decent, just failed in one aspect. All right, let's vote. Let's see, we're getting nothing from Matt tonight. And Alex, you're first.
Well, I have not been able to justify going any lower in my head. So this will be the highest I've given anything this particular season. I'm giving this a 5.
All right, Bill.
Oh wow. Because I've already committed to mine, and I feel like I may come off as overly negative in comparison to a 5. But I'm thinking 4.0.
And I'm actually with Bill on that. I'm also giving it a 4.0. Which, because there's only 3 of us tonight, we'll average it to a 4.3, which is still relatively high. And we'll put this at 101 out of 412 things reviewed. It is on par with Sarah Jane Adventures: The Last Sontaran. It is better than Torchwood Fragments: Exit Wounds, and is not as good as Torchwood Out of Time. So there you have it. 101, 433 things reviewed. That is all we have to say about Sarah Jane Adventures: The Nightmare Man.
All right, so we're finishing up around our normal time. So we did a good job with the short episode. Those listening, please let us know in the comments. How did you feel about this episode? Do you agree with us or do you disagree? And don't forget to like and subscribe to get our exports to YouTube every week, or follow us on Twitch to see our streams every Tuesday night.
So next week we're continuing with the 4th series of Sarah Jane Adventures, and the 3rd episode that we are watching this year, or at least this season, with The Vault of Secrets, written by Phil Ford and starring Elizabeth Sladen as Sarah Jane Smith, Daniel Anthony as Clyde Langer, Anjali Mohindra as Rani Chandra, Alexander Armstrong as Mr. Smith. We will see you next week.
See you then.